You know, this is my brother's watch. It's the Breitling Chronomat GMT, and it actually got me thinking about the purpose of watch collecting. Why do we all have these obsessions over cars, vintage cameras, watches, paintings? What really is it that draws us to these things, really? Not the bravado that we throw in front of it, the residual values or the colors or the hype. What is it below the surface really that attracts us to these pieces of art? And that's what we're going to cover today in this video. Welcome back to the Chisholm Hunter channel. My name is Harrison, as always. And let's discuss the specs of this watch before we get into what watch collecting really means to us, because it's a watch review channel after all. So this watch comes in at 40 millimeters in diameter, and that is complemented by an 11.7 millimeters in thickness. It just sits absolutely beautifully on the wrist. And honestly, this is such a good all-rounder. I can imagine, actually, because it's my brother's watch, I've seen him wearing this in a suit. And me being me, I went up a Monroe with it. So I went up into the hills with it when it was 20 degrees in Scotland. I'll talk a bit later about that. And it wore perfectly. It wore really, really comfortably, actually. And I think part of the comfortability links to the rubber strap. A lot of the time when you're hiking up these Monroes, like I did with this watch, blood rushes to your extremities. So you kind of swell up a little bit, and also it was 20 degrees, so you expand naturally. And with a bracelet or with a NATO, it doesn't have that stretch that rubber does naturally to it. So this rubber strap was super, super comfortable, and I have to commend them because I'm not sure how they've done it, but it's one of the most comfortable straps I've actually worn. This watch comes in at 47.4 millimeters lug to lug and 20 millimeters in lug width. The case comes in stainless steel and platinum. I believe it's actually the bezel that's in platinum and the case is in stainless steel. But if you guys know the kind of split, the kind of ratio split, please let me know in the comments. The dial on this model is this beautiful baby blue color, and the GMT hand is in a little bit of a darker shade of blue, which pops out and is still very visible against the dial. It is honestly a thing of beauty. Now, being a GMT model, it does read multiple time zones at the one time. And in my job, I'm very lucky as a photographer and videographer that I get to travel a hell of a lot. Seriously, seriously lucky. And the amount of times that I've been overseas in Australia, Philippines, Bali, and I've gone to call home, looked at my GMT watch and thought, nope, I can't do that at the moment because it's 2 a.m. back home. So it has saved me genuinely in several different occasions. This watch is water resistant to 200 meters, has a screwed down crown, and honestly, the key attraction to this watch, for me anyway, is the bezel. Honestly, stainless steel or platinum, like this might be, bezels, are getting stripped away for ceramic very rapidly, and they're kind of a dying breed in the industry. But I genuinely believe that this looks so much cleaner and so much nicer than ceramic does. I'm just a huge fan of it. The only thing that I could spot about this watch that I'm not as keen on, and this is just a personal preference thing, is because it doesn't have an open case bag. I am a kind of fan of open case backs. I like seeing the beating heart of my watch. The movement in this model is the Breitling Caliber 32. It's a self-winding mechanical movement beating at 28,800 VPH, and it has approximately 42 hours of power and 21 joules. Actually, it's not approximate for the joules. It has 21 joules. Okay, so now that we've talked about what you really need to know about this watch, all the specs and all that good stuff, let's talk about what the purpose of watch collecting really is. What it truly means to us watch collectors. You know, I feel like in life, people make things more complicated than they really are. And I see this across tons of different facets that I'm involved in now: podcasting, YouTube, social media, photography, videography, watch collecting. Watch collecting, prime example, people talk about flipping. They talk about residual values. They talk about hype purchases. They talk about watches and wonders. And it kind of blurs the truth of what's actually going on right in front of their eyes. And I'm going to tell a couple of stories about this so that I can kind of make my point clear here. The other day, I was filming a podcast on the Into the Mind podcast channel with a gentleman called Duhan van der Merwe. Now, Duhan van der Merwe is possibly the best rugby player in the world at the moment, in my opinion. He's firstly absolutely humongous. He's a super cool, super nice guy. And I had serious anxiety, being totally honest about this. like really bad anxiety, because the podcast is growing at a level that I didn't think it would grow. And that kind of stresses me out. I honestly just believe it's maybe growing too fast. And before the podcast, my brother talked to me and he said, listen, just go out there and do what you love to do. You know, you love rugby, you love watching rugby. So just talk to him about what you love. And then on top of that, he gave me this watch. He didn't give me it, I'm borrowing it, but he gave me this watch and said, listen, I know you like this watch. Why don't you wear it in the podcast? And that was a huge deal to me. I don't think he really realized how much that meant to me at that time. And this watch, forever and always now, you know, it's has a link with my brother. And then another story on top of that is I was going up in Monroe with one of my best pals the other day. I had this watch on, and we were hiking up this Monroe. It's called Ben Vorlich. It's 980 meters. And we were climbing. It's 20 degrees. I've got a 20 kilo backpack on because I've got my drone batteries, cameras, ND filters, tripod, all that kind of stuff. And it sucks. It really does. It really sucks. But you have a laugh about how rubbish it is on the way up. And then when you get to the top, all of a sudden, you can see clearly. You look into the distance, you look over the mountains, you look over Glasgow, you look over Scotland, you look over the world, and you realize how small you really are. And that kind of sticks with you for a while. And as I was up there on the top of the mountain filming the watch and with one of my best pals, you know, it's a memory that I'll always connect to this timepiece. And I think that's the purpose right there. Now, you could give me a watch that I find very ugly and say, listen, Harrison, this is your grandpa's vintage Rolex from 1920. And all of a sudden, that watch means so much to me that I would never sell it. I would keep it and I would cherish and love it until the day that I die, and I would pass that on. Because all of a sudden, it's got value and meaning to me. And I think that's what the meaning is. It's life moments. It's graduations, weddings, celebrations of milestones. You know, when we hit 100K on the YouTube channel, hopefully, I'll definitely be getting a new watch because it's a celebration. And I think that everyone on this channel and across the watch industry needs to remember that. They need to remember that it's not about the residual values, the colors, the hype. It's about the reminder of living and how beautiful and short, truly short this life is. And I think people need to remember that. I think people just get too caught up over this hype crap. And it's not about that. It's truly about what that watch means to you. Everyone has their own preferences, their own color tastes. None of that matters, really, in the grand scheme of things. If the watch means something to you, get it. The true purpose of watch collecting is about representing pinnacle life moments that you want to hold on to and you don't want to forget. And I think that's pretty special.